Conditionals Practice. At the conclusion of this lesson, you will be able to write programs that use Boolean expressions and conditional statements with the support of sample code. And you'll be able to debug programs that use Boolean expressions and conditional statements. Today, or at least in this lesson, we're going to have a chance to practice programming with a lot of concepts and patterns that we've explored over the last 2 lessons. I encourage you to go through these with a partner if you have a friend in the class, or some of you have a sibling in the class. You can work through this with them. But please pay close attention to what each other is doing. Don't let one person just do all the work. In our next lesson, you're going to have to use a lot of these on an independent project. And these activities are good practice for what you'll find there. All right, now let's get to it. First, this is Conditionals Practice. You need to go to Unit 4, right up here, Unit 4, Lesson 7, the activity. You want to proceed right over here to Level 2. You're going to navigate to Lesson 7, Level 2 on Code Studio. And then what are you going to do there? Well, today you're mostly going to practice what we've learned about programming with conditionals. As always, you should be using the debugging process to help you as you work on issues. Today, we're also going to be working on finding 2 particular types of errors. 1, syntax errors. Show up when you type code that breaks the rules of the programming language. You can check for errors and warnings. Syntax errors are things like a misspelled variable name, putting a comma in the wrong place or not having a comma, using things that aren't right. Think of it as punctuation and spelling errors. 2, logic errors. Show up when you type valid code, but it works incorrectly. Today, you're going to focus on testing your code to make sure you don't have any logic errors. Logic errors are, let's say you are writing a program to play a game of football. And when someone kicks an extra point, you add 2 points instead of 1. Or maybe you add 3 points. Maybe you just counted every kick as 3 points instead of a point after touchdown as 1. Okay, so that would be a logic error where the code works, it adds, it produces a number, just not the right number. Other errors that you may encounter are runtime errors. This is a mistake in the program that shows when running the program. These are defined by the programming language. Overflow error is an error that occurs when a computer tries to handle a number outside the defined range of values. Now, the debugging process itself, you describe the problem. What do you expect your program to do? And what does it actually do? And does it always happen? Or are there only certain cases where it happens? Then you hunt for bugs. Are there any warnings or errors? What did you change most recently? Explain your code to someone else, line by line. Look for code related to the problem. Try solutions. Make a small change and run the program again. If that doesn't change anything, if it doesn't, back it out, do something else. Document as you go. Anytime you make a change to try to fix a problem, you should also add a comment with what the change is that you're making and what you think it's going to fix. You also want to note in your own notes, what have you learned, what strategies did you use, and what questions do you have? Specific debugging skill for the day, syntax error. Your code doesn't follow the rules of the programming language. You're writing a variable name in quotes. You're using a variable that doesn't exist. Check for warnings and errors. Okay? My favorite number is set to 1. My favorite food is set to pizza. What's wrong with pizza? Logic errors. Your code follows the rules of the programming language but doesn't do what you intend. Writing if-else-if statements in the wrong order. Updating the property of the wrong element. Test your code. Okay? $40 you can adopt, 50 you can adopt, 50 you can't adopt. Huh, what happened there? 39 you can't adopt, 100 you can't adopt. You might take a look. Go back. Look to see what happened. Is the age and the money working out? Does it work the way it's supposed to? And by the way, up here for pizza, notice there are no double quotes after the word pizza, just before it, so it doesn't know where your string ends. You need to practice checking for both syntax errors and logic errors in your program. Now, as you work through Unit 4, Lesson 7, before you run off and work, levels 2 through 4, these levels only use the console.log command, which prints commands in the debug console. Here are a few things to keep an eye out for. Levels 2 through 3 will ask you to write Boolean expressions using comparison operators. You may need to quickly review the comparison operators: less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to. Remember that these are going to return that something is true or false. Level 4 will ask you to write Boolean expressions with logical operators and, or, not. You need to remember and, or, not. Now, as you move on, Unit 4, Lesson 7, Levels 5 through 9, these levels practice if statements while working with a star color changing app. Levels 5 and 6 involve setting up an if statement that becomes an if-else statement. Level 7, you will follow a pattern to create a lengthy if-else-if statement. For Level 8, make sure you slow down the running of the code to understand what's happening. It's suggested that you use the slider to slow down the code. Watch it go step by step. Level 9 demonstrates that Boolean expressions can be written as conditional statements and vice versa. Again, at any moment where you need to, you can pause and take a snapshot of this. Unit 4, Lesson 7, Levels 10 and 11. These two levels return to the Can I Adopt a Cat flowchart from the Conditionals Explore activity that was previously done. You will use the flowchart to work out the logic of the if statements in your program. A new block appears in these levels, Get Number. This is different than Get Text. Get Number gets a number from a user input that can be used mathematically. Level 11 can be completed many different ways. There are different combinations of Boolean expressions using and or. You should regularly test your apps to see if your Boolean expressions are working properly. Now, to complete levels 2 through 11 should take between 30 and 40 minutes. Please don't take hours and hours and hours to complete. If you're struggling, maybe look at somebody else's who's working. Compare your code to their code. Check it out. In the meantime, pause the video and set an alarm for about 40 minutes. If you're still not done, you might want to check with a friend and look to see how theirs worked out. Okay? Go ahead and start. Okay, now that you're done, now that you've had some practice with conditionals, let's wrap up this lesson. Conditionals can be a little tricky, but there was a lot of good progress today in nailing down this concept. You may have a few lingering questions, but you also have a lot of resources available. Next time, in the next lesson, you'll have a chance to put all of this together by programming an app that starts with the blank screen, which means that next time in AP CSP, we'll go to Unit 4, Lesson 8, Conditionals Make. If you still need to, or if you want to, and you haven't finished, you are certainly more than welcome to go back and complete Lesson 7. If you're really struggling and you didn't get through it at all, definitely seek some extra assistance, seek some extra help. Okay?